first panel session, the Digital Trade Forum, and we're looking at the future of trade in Africa is digital. I'll kick off by giving a perspective. David Lidington said, "We live in an age of innovation where digital technology is providing solutions to problems before we even realize we needed them. We see it every day as we find new ways to travel, eat, and shop." Now, digital technologies and innovations impacts on our daily lives. And trade, which essentially is exchange of goods and services, is an integral of our lives. As digital technology and innovations increase rapidly, the future of trade in Africa will definitely increasingly become digital, particularly having regard to the potential of digital technology and innovations such as mobile internet adoption, the rise of digital payment systems, and development of digital trade platforms to overcome traditional trade barriers that drives trade efficiency, reduce trade costs, and expand market access for businesses across the continent of Africa, especially within the context of the African Continental Free Trade Area (AfCFTA), which seeks to create a single market of more than 1.3 billion people. The very possibility of a single market across Africa makes digital trade and payments a topical conversation, a topical discussion, and we'll be having this dialogue this afternoon. So I'm going to invite my panelists, our distinguished panelists, to give us their thoughts, their perspective. Within, if you can do it within 1 minute, I would appreciate, so that we'll manage time. 2 minutes at most. I would invite our Chief Executive Officer, Afrigo Financial Services, to give us a perspective on the future of trade in Africa is trade.
Okay, yes, I'm audible now. First of all, I'd like to stand on all existing protocol. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen in the hall. It's been a great pleasure being here today. Just like you said, I think Africa is due for a major economic shift, leveraging digitization of trade, because based on the things that we have already going for us, think about the 900 million plus youth that we have across Africa, the continent. Their understanding, the training, the skills, the knowledge that they get from digitization of trade will create the wealth that is required. And also the wealth that we can pass on from generation to generation, not just now. That we are ready for it. Africa is ready for it. And I believe that the digitization of trade will be a significant push to be able to achieve that. And also with what Africa is doing, if just like everyone talked about in the initial opening today, the ability of all of the African leaders to come from a regional perspective and adopt a lot of the protocols already set by the African free trade, that will really drive trade across Africa. Let me just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you for that perspective. So I will jump to CEO Kurawe. If you can give us your perspective on the subject in just a minute or two. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So I think I'll be speaking from a POV of what we actually do at Kurawe, right? Our business is we are providing a platform that enables anybody anywhere within Africa to source from any business anywhere within Africa. We like to call it the Alibaba of Africa, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to create an open space for any business in, say, Kenya to source from a merchant in Cotonou, or for a merchant in Cotonou to source from a business within Nigeria, let's say Nasarawa State. And this is actually, I mean, trade actually starts first from procurement. I mean, you're not going to sell something, you're not going to move just anything, right? You're actually going to be moving products. How do you find these products? So I think all of these things are basically easier when we are able to, I mean, we're in the internet age. So if anyone anywhere can source from anybody or can find products or what they need to find, I think that would make trade easier across Africa. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll take Mr. Chima. Please, if you could, I beg your pardon, Mr. Ademi, if you could give us your perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, I think since morning we've been talking so much about trade, and because I think the AFC-FTA provides a platform to coordinate that trade across Africa. Every day during the course of my work, I meet with different clients or companies that ask questions about if we are going to Senegal, what's the foreign exchange regime, what's the tax laws in that country. If we are going to Kenya, how do I take my money out? So there's a need for a coordinated effort to ensure that as we are trading with one another across Africa, there's a strong regulatory framework. There's an alignment in policies that make trade actually easy, so that people won't be grappling with, okay, the regulatory framework in different locations. And I think the AFC-FTA provides that platform. As we keep having conversations and rubbing minds, we can strengthen that platform to ensure that the trade actually happens and meet the goals that have been said, all the 140 million jobs potential, the $172 billion economy in 2030, and all those beautiful numbers. So I think I will just stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Ademi. And so, last but not the least, I would take from our DCG your thoughts on the subject, please.
Thank you. It's the power behind dollars? It's gold. And coincidentally, in Nigeria, we have gold. So with this AFCFTA platform, it will be structured, and then Africans will become empowered. Our local currencies will also be able to compete with dollar or euro or whatever other currency it is. Secondly, we also have going for us agriculture. We have good land. Wealth is either on the surface or under the surface. On the surface, we have good soil to bring good plants, which can be leveraged on. And under, we have mineable wealth that we can also work with. All it needs is to aggregate them, structure them, and enjoy prosperity.
Thank you. Mr. Ademi, please can you put off the mic? Thank you. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard our distinguished panelists. We're going to delve into the conversation proper. I would request you have questions, just note them down. Would come to the session of Q&A where you would be opportune to engage with our panelists. And so for the first round of dialogue, I want to engage our DCG, Mrs. Kikelemo. I love the fact that in the course of your keynote address, you said the building the digital future of Africa, it's mandatory. And, at the DCG ICT modernization, I would want you to highlight to our distinguished delegates and participants the progress you've made, because these are essentially digital infrastructures. The progress you've made under the Nigerian Customs ICT modernization initiative, particularly regarding automation, single window platforms, and integration with other trade and payment systems.
Thank you, moderator. Nigerian Customs Service, like one of the keynote address that was made, did not start the journey of automation today. We started 2005 with Asekweda. After Asekweda, we upgraded to 961, then 962. Presently, we just launched, and it's presently on pilot, a unified custom management system called Bodogo. And Bodogo looks at all the leakages of the previous system, plugging them to ensure that we have seamless trade. It's interoperable, and that's why we can easily integrate with other partner government organizations, private enterprises, and several other stakeholders to ensure seamless trade in Nigeria. That is for ICT with the world. But internally, we're building capacity of our ICT officers. We're not just recruiting anyhow. We're deliberate in our recruitment when it comes to technical personnel. We pick people that do not just hold certificates, but they can actually write. If you call yourself a developer, you should be able to code. You should be able to write application with program language. And that as will leverage on their skills. So join together with our concessionaire, the Trade Modernization Project Limited, to build this Bodogu. That is why we call it indigenous application to suffer indigenous challenges.
Thank you, DCG. I must say that custom has evolved over time, and you're doing a great job, and it clearly shows that indeed the future of trade in Africa is digital. Now, I would follow up with a question for my Chief Executive Officer, Afri Go, yes. I would want you to speak to our audience, our delegates, what innovations you think in digital payments. For instance, we talk about mobile money, blockchain, and all that will most impact intra-African trade. We're looking at, digital trade as we're looking at of Africa. Now, what are the innovations in digital payments that would impact on intra-African trade?
I think first, what I think will be most impactful, because we are talking about intra-Africa trade, is if there's central bank of several countries, digital currency that are interpretable. I think that's the word. The ability to have the CBDC of central banks across Africa interpretable will significantly enable trades and also reduce the costs. Today, just like everyone has said here, a lot of cash is still going on. Yes, we have made significant progress in Nigeria. So significant that sometimes we forget that there are other African countries, but the ability to focus on that will help. A second thing will be the blockchain. The blockchain technology is significant. As a matter of fact, the blockchain technology or platforms, whatever it is that we're building across Africa now, must put the blockchain technology into perspective, because it not only enables trade, but in several other areas, whether it's contracts, even just the contract, setting up a contract, trade finance, supply chain finance, logistics. Blockchain drives that. So if we are to make significant progress and move ahead when it comes to inter-African trade, we must look at interoperability of our CBDC across the various central banks, and then also blockchain-driven platforms. Thank you.
Thank you. Chima, I would want to jump to you. I can see how passionate you are about digital trade in Africa. I remember we met sometime last month for an event still on digital trade. Now, as Chief Executive Officer of Kurawe, how do you think Africa can balance the need for digital trade expansion with issues of cybersecurity, and data protection concerns?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So permit me to always be speaking from the point of view of every other person within the trade logistic chain that is outside of payments. I think first of all, we need to build our own infrastructures. When it comes to cybersecurity, I think it starts from the culture, right? Every country have their own, let's say, cybersecurity laws. What are their policies with regards to data storage and all of that? I think we need to start looking inwards to see how we can build our own systems to kind of, make sure that it actually aligns with the core of how Africa is growing. Because, if you tend to look at it, it was because of the floating of the naira that made a lot of startups to start looking inwards to say, okay, how do we cut costs? How do we start using other Nigerian data centers and avoid, using things like AWS and all of that? Just look at it. I'm just imagining that Nigeria or Africa didn't start developing our own payment rails. We are still dependent on the Western payment rails. What would it have been like? So I think we need to start looking inwards to see how we can, work with data companies, people that actually are building things around data storage, cloud hosting, and all of that within Africa to kind of thrive. So yeah, I think that's the first step. And then after that, we can see how we can sync with the policies of various African countries. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chima. I would come to Mr. Ademi at Partner Anderson Tax, Nigeria. And so, at Partner Anderson Tax, Nigeria, what regulatory challenges you see that must be addressed or that should be addressed that would enable frictionless digital transactions across African markets?
Thanks for that. Before now, trade used to be largely physical. You can determine when somebody makes a supply and the other party has actually delivered it. With digital transaction is a bit tricky because I can be registered in Kenya and I may be in Japan, actually operating from Japan, and I'm delivering goods or even services to somebody in Nigeria. Even our regulatory framework, our tax laws were not developed, to deal with digital transactions. So I think the first step is to build robust regulatory framework to align with digital transaction rules. If you look at Nigeria, for instance, as early as 2018, just before the Finance Act in 2019, for you to be taxed in Nigeria as a business, you have to be physically present in Nigeria. So the likes of Netflix, the likes of other digital platforms that provide services to Nigerians were not legally taxable in Nigeria. Between then and now, we've undergone several tax reforms that captures those transactions in Nigeria. Now, it's not enough to build those regulatory frameworks. It's also you have to be sure that they are not hindering trade. Tax is supposed to be neutral. The regulatory and bureaucratic bottlenecks should be removed in such a way that the government gets their own share of the transaction without hindering the trade from happening. So in Africa, I think there needs to be harmonization of tax laws and the regulatory framework such that when businesses come to trade with one another, they are not thinking about the administrative burden that accompanies the trade, especially the digital transaction. The rules are clear and relatable across board. And then the actual reason why they are on platforms, which is trade, can actually occur. And if businesses grow by selling on digital platforms, it provides jobs. It's good for everyone, even for the government. So I think if we focus on that area, providing the right framework for businesses to thrive, I think we can experience more economic activity in that regard.
Thank you. So, Chima, I will come back to you as a private sector player, right? Of course, we're talking about the future of African trade as being digital. And, one thing it's very critical and very important, there is the digital skills and knowledge gap that we have in Africa. Now, if we're going to build a digital Africa, then, much has to be done with respect to digital skills. So, what I really want you to bring out is, for our audience, what role does digital literacy play in empowering, drawing insights from the platform you've built, empowering exporters to adopt to new payment technologies?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think this one is actually one that is really dear to me. And the reason is because when we started out Kuraway, the first thing we tried to build was an escrow payment system. The reason we tried to build that escrow payment system was because we actually realized that trades happen, things happen, but people are actually more like Africa has this very low trust score, right? This thing has to do with trust. Today there are multiple payment platforms, but I wouldn't go to anyone I just see to sign up. I'll have to probably pick the ones that are very popular, right? And that's because they've been able to build trust, right? So in this case, I think my answer will be quite nuanced, but I'll just layer it on trust because we could do much more. I think the internet penetration is one conversation on one hand, but for areas that already have that internet penetration, how do we get people to believe that, oh, this is supposed to help you? I'll use, for instance, when Nigeria rolled out the whole BVN thing, I think I was still young then, but I mean, living in the East then, you hear a lot of people say things like, what's BVN? I mean, are you sure they're not going to steal our money? Is it not 666? Is it not all of those things? Right? It sounds very funny, but over time, because government was actually involved in it and was really enforcing these things, you now realize that somehow people are now very comfortable with probably going to the bank to register or get your BVN and all of those things. So I think it will take time to be ingrained in like our culture and all of that, but we also need government agencies to also help promote this digital literacy alongside private sector. Because for us, we actually face a very huge issue, and that issue is trust. I mean, you want to do a transaction with somebody, the person will look at you, he'll give you cola nut and say, I eat. After eating, he'll tell you, I'm sorry, we cannot continue because you know, but inside of that, you just know that this guy doesn't even trust you because he doesn't know who you are. So yeah, I think that's the very short answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. DCG, I'll come back to you for a moment. And I want us to talk a little bit about issues of cybersecurity, because as we anticipate, more digital disruptions in Africa, and as we build a digital, Africa, in the context of trade, we are faced with the issues of, data integrity, issues of cybersecurity. So as DCG ICT modernization, of the Nigerian Customs Service, how are you addressing issues, around cybersecurity, or how do you, what plans do you have, or what plans do you have on ground, in tackling cybersecurity and data integrity, as you build digital infrastructure to, of course, safeguard trade, importantly, the financial component of it. I mean, talking about financial transactions within the ecosystem. I don't know if the question is, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I want to pick it from where Chima stopped. Saying you have your data stored in cloud, there is nothing in the cloud. It's in one server somewhere. And so for that, Nigerian Customs Service first built a data center, stocked it with servers so that we are sure of our data. Put backup in another place so that if something happens to that, we have where to get. We also get some protocols on data policies, and we publicize it. Make people know what it entails. Totally, we do not also leave it at that. We'll ensure the need to know. We put control on the access. You can't view what you have no business with. Even within the internal Nigerian Customs Service, so talk less of other government agencies. If what you want to see is weight, why then do you want to see the taxes? If what you want to see is the taxes, what is your business with the address of the importer? So we ensure that also. So adherence to data policies and cyber policies, ensuring that our infrastructure are secured with firewalls. We are operating with an ISO 2701 standard to ensure that we are in line with international best practices. And we do not give access. So we want to know what you are doing, who is doing what in the system and at one time. I think recently somebody did a job, cleared some things around in the bank, mind you, around 12 midnight. And the DCGT auntie said, what is he doing on the system at this hour? Please, DCGICT, block him for me. And I blocked him. And we wrote a letter to the bank. What is your officer doing with our system at that time? Those are practical, practical things, controls put in place to ensure that our data is secure and our system is not compromised. Thank you.
Thank you, DCG. We must say we are really proud of what the Nigerian Custom is doing. All right, so I'll come back to my Chief Executive Officer. We have policymakers here, we have regulators, we have industry players here. And I want to ask, and I want you to speak to our audience, for our regulators who are here. what one action, of course, including other stakeholders, governments, businesses, tech providers here, what one action should be prioritized today, to ensure that Africa lead, in digital trade. Already we are leading, Nigeria has been designated as digital trade champion, but we can do more. So from your perspective, what one action can we do collaboratively, particularly within the context of the AFCFTA, to lead and to continue to lead, in the digital trade ecosystem? Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a very pertinent question. I mean, we don't want to leave here without agreeing what should we all do together. I think for me, the first thing is interoperability. Because if you have systems that are interoperable across Africa, we begin to think about real trade. And I think that's what PAPS and what the NIPS are supporting PAPS to do. Because once you have that, then the SME out there can begin to work on one platform instead of fragmented platforms where they all have to go through. So for interoperability across the infrastructures that we're putting in place is very, very critical. For the government, I know we talked about, and I think the taxman talked about uniformity. I think we need to stress the fact, just like the central bank director said, that the fact that you are collaborating does not mean you are letting go of sovereignty. You can do that. You can still collaborate together, but be able to achieve what you need to do. And then we need to invest. The businesses need to invest on API-driven, a lot of API-driven infrastructures and things like that, because you will require that to do that. But again, my number one would be interoperability, because that's the beginning. Once everyone is able to, I talked about CDBC, government interoperability. Once we can do that, then we are ready to move across Africa. So people like the organization like PAPS should be supported across Africa. The protocols that needs, the agreement that needs to come together should be worked on. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Just quickly, maybe I'll take one or throw one at Mr. Adeyemi. Maybe if you can give me that in a few seconds so that we can go to the audience and take some interventions from them. And so what are the biggest risks? Maybe one, two, to Africa's digital growth? And how can they be mitigated, or how can it be mitigated?
I think for me, when you talk about digital trade, you need to look at the whole population in Africa and ask yourself, how many people are equipped to actually come on board to trade digitally? So for me, it's a lack of education, which borders on the lack of trust that the other speakers had mentioned. So I would say that we need to educate people, especially in the informal sector, to make sure that more trade are moved from the informal sector to the formal sector. And one of the ways that can be achieved is through the digital trade platforms. The other thing I would say is that for governments, most of the transactions that happen across Africa require government intervention and enablement to happen. Sometimes you have to give up some part of your revenue to make this happen. If you look at our laws in the past few years, we've actually exempted MSMEs from taxes. I mean, if you're earning less than 25 million in turnover, you won't pay tax in Nigeria. And that's because across Africa, you have similar laws in Kenya, in South Africa. More governments in Africa are trying to exclude the MSMEs from administrative bottlenecks that would impact their inclusion in trade. I also know that as we develop solutions, sometimes our solutions require other sources. For instance, you need adequate power to go on internet to explore certain online tools. We need to develop unique platforms that are peculiar to Africa and can solve African problems. For instance, if you want to carry on transaction and you do not have internet, you can use the USSD code. That's something peculiar to Africa because even if I'm in the village and I have broadband penetration, I can explore the USSD option than the internet option. So I would say more solutions like that that are peculiar to Africa to unlock the potential that the AFCFTA holds. That's my take on the possible solutions that we can explore.
Thank you, panelists. I can see the organizers of this conference are already flashing time at me. So to be fair to the forum, we'll now turn to our audience, our distinguished delegates and participants who've heard our panelists. And we want to take interventions from you. We want to take questions from you. And I would say if you can ask the question better than I do, I would want to take 3 interventions perhaps. We'll take one from this side, we'll take one from the middle, and we'll take one from the extreme end there. So who wants to take the first shot? Our participants. Yes, please. Can we have the technical team, can we have a mic to the gentleman, yes, at the back there?
Okay, good afternoon. It's good
Yes,
to be
please.
here.
We'll just appreciate your name, your perhaps organization, and then direct your question to the panelist.
Okay,
Thank you.
My name is Nii. I work with NCI Insurance. My question is to our national coordinator for AFTA. So you spoke a lot about
Sorry,
sorry,
we don't have the national
the gentleman.
okay,
directly, yes.
that's
Thank you.
Anderson Tax.
Okay,
Nigeria.
Anderson. Thank you, Tax.
Yes,
Thank you. So I really just want to talk around the financial service sector and how the African Free Trade Agreement is working. For us in the insurance space, we've not seen so much in how we've collaborated, especially when it comes to payments for our clients across Africa. So I want to also know what the organization is doing in that regard, especially connecting, pushing insurance to different people around Africa. Thank you.
All right. Can we have 2 other questions if there are before we take, before I come back to the panelists? Any question? Okay, so I just want to be sure there's none here. Our delegates here, they are good to go. Okay, yeah, so we have one there, and then please we have one over here. Please, if you can make it very snappy, just to the point, direct to the point, please. Thank you.
Ms. Providence Akpa. I work for QHSE Services Provider Limited. My question is, what are the digital security risks to all these payment systems we are talking about? And what are the sustainability, what are the effects for the sustainability of small businesses? That's my question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hello. So who are you directing the question to? Or, well, anybody on the panel can take that. Okay, so can I have the last gentleman there? There's no lady or a woman? Okay, so let's have your question, please. Thank you. Our time is up, and we need to tidy up. Thank you.
My name is Leonard Ogunwede. I work in the non-profit sector, and I would like to ask a question. The protocol of trade and payment inside the AFCFTA, it is not really known yet. I don't know who is doing it. I was aiming this question for Dandaso, but it's not here. The education of the protocol itself into a layman language that people on the street can understand. How far have they gone about that?
Okay, so I would perhaps take that question. I'm actually the and that's what you're looking for. So maybe we'll take Mr. Ademi, your thoughts, and yes.
So quickly, I think your question relates to what are really the opportunities with AFCFTA as it concerns the financial service sector. And I think insurance is a subset of that. So I would say that there are tremendous opportunities that AFCFTA holds, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. If you look at the protocols on trade, the protocols on digital trade specifically even, it provides certain provisions for transactions to happen across board without even physically going to those locations. And I think there are still about 8 annexes that needs to be agreed by African countries that have signed up to the AFCFTA agreement. So I would say that you may not see so much activity right now, but things are evolving in the background. What you find currently is people transacting business outside of the agreement based on the local laws of those jurisdictions. And I would say that beyond the AFCFTA, all African countries are competing for funds. And funds is scarce. So if you want to attract investment, you need to make sure that your local laws are amenable to be able to attract that. If you take Mauritius, for example, there's little or no taxes payable in Mauritius. Rwanda, Mauritius are developing a financial services center that will attract businesses to do business actually or trade in those countries. And I think Nigeria is taking a new turn by changing our tax laws from existing ones to the Nigerian tax bill that contains certain provisions, even though I would say that the current tax bills has reduced some of the incentives that used to exist in the old tax laws, but it is more friendly for financial services industry. So for insurance business specifically, I would say that we just have to watch the space and see how more of the governments would agree and see the trade that would unlock based on those harmonizations of the regulatory space and even the tax laws in those countries. But for now, I would say it's a wait and see approach.
Thank you. DCG, maybe you would add to that and then take the question by the gentleman over here.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I just want to add to what Amy was saying about AFCFTA. People are hearing about it, to be sincere. And then also Nigerian Customs Service has 22 countries that are to enjoy the AFCFTA. And there is we're already working on it. Presently, our developers are working on it. There is a procedure code they will use. With that procedure code, they're not going to pay any tax. It will just flow through. I think in the next 5-7 days, they should be able to capture and have that. On the risk that you ask, even getting up from bed is risk. Sleeping on the bed is risk. We are not blind to the risk involved in finances. Everybody wants, in fact, in this Gen Z, they want to make it fast. Get born today like Solomon Gandhi, Christian today, start riding and whatever. They are forgotten at the end of the week. Solomon Gandhi is dead. So in this age, there is that risk. The most prominent risk in life is human factor risk, and which is what we're all managing. So risk, you cannot take it away. We just treat it, mitigate the one we can, avoid the one we can, share the ones that we cannot afford avoid, manage it. On insurance, presently, Nigerian Customs Service on Bodogo has integration with NICOM. And that is one of the problems agents are having, licensed agents are having. If you do not, before, they will just upload anything and say it's insurance, noting that our tax base is cost, insurance, freight. So insurance is supposed to be among what you pay duty on. And so they just do not include that, just upload anything. Our previous system accepts it. But now with integration with Nikon, immediately they put it, it goes in a jiffy. So Nikon platform. And Nikon platform responds within seconds to our system. If it is okay, it will go through. If it is not, it will tell them error. So if we can do that here in Nigeria, we already have a platform for AFCFT. Thank you.
Thank you, DCG, and thank you, distinguished delegates and participants. We are way out of time, and we must leave the stage. Otherwise, the organizers will come for my neck. But let me respond to the question by the gentleman over there. I agree. Awareness on the AFCFTA, it's, low. And, that is the reason why the Nigerian AFCFTA Coordination Office was set up in 2019. And from 2019, we have engaged. The AFCFTA has about 8 protocols. Of course, there's the AFCFTA protocol on digital trade, which is the focus mainly for, the conference. Of course, related to it's the protocol on trading services. We can't unpack that now, but Nigerian AFCFTA Coordination Office have engaged specifically on the digital trade protocol. I remember last year we had workshops here in Lagos and in Abuja back to back. That was even before the adoption of the AFCFTA digital trade protocol by the AU heads of states. There was kind of awareness sensitization on that particular protocol. Just last month, I was, speaking, I made reference when I said Chima were in an event. There was the AFCFTA hackathon, project, which we had last month here in Lagos. It's also focused on this particular digital trade. And of course, even last year, there was a road show we had, on PAPS, in collaboration with PAPS. That was done here in Lagos. So, we want to assure you that the Nigerian government, the AFCFTA Coordination Office, is doing, a lot around these particular protocols. But like we always say, or like someone who I look up to would say, that the AFCFTA is not a sprint, it's a marathon. The AFCFTA is just gaining momentum, and we must keep faith. We must continue to engage. We must take deliberate steps individually and collectively, to see the benefits and the gains. The gains of the AFCFTA, it's not automatic. We have to engage with it, and then we can see the benefits thereof. Gentlemen, it has been an exciting journey with you. Our time is up. We've talked about building digital trade infrastructure, interoperability. We've talked about digital skills and knowledge gap, the need for, awareness, education through digital platforms. We've talked about even harmonization of regulatory frameworks, as we build the digital trade in Africa. We talked about security issues and cybersecurity issues. These are some of the issues we've talked to, and I must say that as we continue to explore the theme beyond borders, digital trade and payment, the future of trade indeed in Africa, it's digital. And I dare say that the future of trade in Africa is Nigeria. Once again, I want to thank my distinguished panelists, our Ebiheji Momo, Chief Executive Officer, Afrigo Financial Services Limited, Mrs. Kikelomo Adiola, the DCG, ICT Modernization Nigerian Customs, Mr. Ademi Adediran, partner, Anderson Tax Nigeria, and of course, David Chima, co-founder, Chief Executive Officer, Kurawe Nigeria Limited. Thank you so much for being on this exciting panel. Thank you, distinguished delegates, for your audience. Thank you.
Please, can we pose for a group photograph? Thank you very much. All right, please, let's put our hands together for Mr. Adeyinka and Director Toba as they join them for the group photograph. Please, let's put our hands together for them once again. Such a brilliant panel session. I mean, that was the very first panel session of the day, and very engaging conversations that they had. Who best to talk about the future of trade in Africa than the National Coordination Office, Africa Continental Free Trade Area, Mr. Kumbas Dandaso. Thank you very much for moderating that panel session. Ladies and gentlemen, we're pressed for time now, but we're going right into the next item of the day. Please, as you already know, in this room, we're generous with our applause because I'm about to introduce one of our sponsors, and he will be speaking to us and giving us a sponsor's presentation. So ladies and gentlemen, please, with your very generous applause, let us make welcome on stage the country manager, New Land Payment Technology Nigeria, Mr. Fego Okioma. Please, let's sustain the applause till he gets up stage. Thank you very much. Please, we can do better than that.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please, can I have the slides up? Okay. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and organizers of Digital PayExpo 2025. My name is Fego Okioma. I am country manager for New Land Payment Technology. New Land Payment Technology is a leading POS OEM globally. It's a pleasure to be here this year, to be one of the sponsors. Thank you for having us. Very briefly, I'll just run you through some very brief presentation we put together to just add our voice to the conversation for today. So quickly, we'll just run you through about New Land. Please, next slide. So New Land Payment Technology is a leading POS OEM with presence in over 120 countries globally. We have footprints, of course, in Nigeria, that's why we're here, and in different markets globally. New Land Payment Technology has presence, like I said, 120 countries. We have over 8,000 staff and currently 1,200 employees under the payment arm of the business. We're headquartered in China, Fuzhou in China, but we have presence in different markets, including Nigeria, like I mentioned earlier. New Land is also top 3 POS OEM consistently over the last couple of years, churning out innovative POS products and solutions across the global market. We have a very strong supply chain, and it takes us about 22 days end-to-end for full production of devices to shipment. On an annual basis, we do at least 10 million devices across the world. Like I said, we have presence in 120 countries, like I mentioned earlier. We also have factories across different markets, and we have in China, we have in Malaysia, we have in Brazil, taking care of our different markets across the world. Just very briefly, I'll run you through the company's evolution and how various milestones that we have accomplished over the last couple of years since inception. We're founded in 1994, like I mentioned, and we produced one of the first POS devices even used globally and not just in China. Please, a round of applause for Newland. In 2013, we became a market leader in MPOS, which was where the technology was at that time. And over the years, we have also improved. In 2016, we produced the first N900, became the first produced full touchscreen Android devices. Today, you go everywhere, you see Android devices, but we were one of the first to produce that anywhere in the world. In 2018, we opened branches in Brazil, Hong Kong, of course, business expansion. And we started going to different countries just to expand our reach and to take care of the Latin American market. In 2022, according to Nielsen report, Newland was ranked as the leading POS OEM globally in terms of shipment and quality of products. In 2023, we established further offices in other countries, including Singapore, France, Germany, just to deepen our reach globally. And in 2024, we launched our flagship product called the N950 series. I'll say this is one of the most innovative POS products that you'll find out there. You'll see that as we proceed with the presentation. In terms of our partnership, we are global, like I mentioned. We have a spread across different countries, but of course, we're in Nigeria and we have partners in Nigeria. Of course, we are a B2B organization, so we deal with the banks, we deal with the fintechs. We don't deal with the end users like the agents on the street. We deal with banks, we deal with fintechs who in turn provide solutions that come to the end users at the end of the day, right? So we're a major player in that space. So some of our partners in Nigeria, just for context, First Bank, Zenith Bank, Axis Bank, we've worked with these banks in the past. For fintechs, we have Flutterwave, we have Airtel Smart Cash, and a couple of others that I'll mention later. Okay, so that's the first half of my presentation. Just to introduce you to my company, to know what we do, to know who we are, so that you can at least listen to me for the next part of the presentation. So I'll just talk very briefly on some payment trends that we've observed. Like I said, we are a major player, and research and development is one of our biggest assets in our, armory. And so we are in touch with what's going on in the world in terms of payments, in terms of new trends, and of course, every one of us here knows what AI is doing to the world. Now, payments is not excluded in any way. It's still a major part that is still going to be disrupted in the next couple of, in fact, it's here already. So I'll just talk you through some trends that we've observed in the last couple of years and that we still see in the next couple of years taking and shaping the payment space. For real-time payments, okay, I'll just mention them. Real-time payments, digital wallets, BNPL, which is buy now, pay later, AI, like I mentioned, biometrics and contactless payments. Real-time payments, for us in Nigeria, we're already used to that. In most other African countries, and some other countries in the world, they are not used to real-time payments yet. The world is evolving, the world is moving very fast, but Nigeria was always ahead of the curve, thanks to NIBS and some of our partners who have, facilitated this process over the last couple of years. So we're already spoiled. We're used to real-time payments, but in some markets, they're not used to that. In fact, it's not existing. So, but real-time payments is becoming a trend that we've seen even in other markets. Markets where it wasn't existing before, it is currently becoming a norm, right? Part of the observations we've seen, now if you check the chart on the board, what you see is that now the green bar, which is what is most visible, is cards. Cards is still one of the major means of payment. Of course, that's why you can use POSs, because where there are no POSs, you cannot really use your cards except you're doing online payments, right? Next slide, please. I just want to run quick because of time. The next is digital wallets. Now, this is a major trend that we've seen in the last couple of years, but it's gaining traction. Not yet in Nigeria as much, but I know very recently some of the local players in Nigeria, InterSwitch, 3Line, recently launched the ability to process digital wallets, for payments. But digital wallets is just simply having your card tokenized on your device to make payments. So you can just go around with your device, tap, make a payment with your card already embedded in it. But we don't really have that so much yet in Nigeria, but we are coming. We're almost there. If you check the charts, you see the value of transactions for what digital wallets is currently doing globally. So of course, Nigeria will not be left out, and that's why players in Nigeria are already trying to get ready for this solution. Next slide. BNPL, I won't talk much about this because Nigeria is a very unique market, but BNPL is also a trend that we have seen in other markets, and we are hopeful that we can make it work in Nigeria. The credit culture in Nigeria is not the best, and so that has hindered BNPL significantly, but we believe that there's still an opportunity for growth in that aspect. Next slide, please. Okay, now this part is, I wish I could spend more time, but I have very limited time. Now, like I mentioned earlier, AI is changing the world. AI is changing the way we view the world in general. Now, AI definitely is coming into payment, but one major aspect where AI is going to be very useful in the payment space is fraud prevention. Because AI can be proactive, AI can be worked, tweaked just to meet particular needs. So a lot of companies recently have started investing aggressively in artificial intelligence to reduce fraud. Because someone asked earlier during the panel session about the risks of payments. Now, these are some of the things that AI can do for the payment space, right? So not just saying trying to automate the payment, but also mitigating frauds and risk in the payment space in general. These are some of the different companies really have been investing aggressively in deployment of AI in payments. JP Morgan Chase, an American bank, and a couple of others have been investing heavily in research, just trying to see how AI can be used in the entire payment chain end to end to prevent fraud and also to ensure smooth payment facilitation. The next one's biometric payment. Biometric payment is already here. I'm sure a lot of you have gone to an ATM where you saw, where you can use your fingerprint. I know NIBS also has a feature that they launched recently where you can integrate your API, integrate to the NIBS API and leverage the biometric solution. However, biometric payment is not just fingerprints. It could also be facial recognition, it could be contactless payment. It could take a different shape, right? And so this is also becoming a trend. As you can see on the screen, we have some use cases that are already live globally, where people are already using biometric payments. Newland currently is working with a company in Nigeria who's looking to disrupt that space where you can use your fingerprint to do certain payments. I'm not at liberty to disclose some of that, but there are already people working on stuff like that in Nigeria today. And in the next couple of years, we see that that's going to happen. In China, for example, if you see at the far right of the screen, WeChat has launched something called a Palm Pay feature. I'll talk more about it in the next couple of slides. Very briefly, in the last 5 minutes, what I'll do is just to run you through Newland products and our portfolio. Like I mentioned earlier that we launched a product in 2024 called the N950 series. The N950 series is our flagship product that has an array of products, but generally, apart from the N950 series, we have a couple of devices that we do. We have conventional Linux devices, you have the pin pads, ECR, unattended devices, or whatever the case may be. But going to the N950 series, the N950 series is our flagship product. And like we say, it's a product that has device for every chain within the ecosystem. So depending on what use case, what value chain, wherever you are within the ecosystem, we have a device for you that matches that. So the N950 series, we have the fingerprint version, we have the Android 14 version, of course. We have the customer display. So conventional devices you have today just has one screen. We have a device that shows you a second screen that allows you to, for the customer to see what he's doing, like whatever the attendant is doing on the POS, right? Just tell you a little about some of the features of the N950 family. The N950 is Android 14 OS operation system. Also, there's an Android 12 version, depending on what customers will require. Like I mentioned, there are different views that you can see also on the screen. It's one of the fastest devices out there today. It's very rugged, and it has some functionalities like eSIM. That's something that you really don't have in most of the devices out there. So eSIM compatibility is also something that is very critical for the new trends. A lot of people are doing away with plastic, so we have prepared devices that leverage eSIM to drive adoption as quickly as possible. These devices also can allow multiple payment methods. So whether it's digital wallets, like I said, they can be used on our devices, whether they're biometrics, QR codes, tap, pay, insert, swipe, whatever you want to do can be done with these devices. Like I said, we have an array of devices that we are currently exhibiting right outside. Yes, I spoke about this earlier, just to tell you a little about the Palm Pay technology. The Palm Pay, not Palm Pay Nigeria, Palm Pay, actual Palm Pay. So it's a technology you have out there where all you need to do is just to read the veins on your palm and payment is completed. The way it works is that there is some registration that is done. Once that is done, you just scan the veins on your hand and payment is completed. You don't need to insert a card. You don't need to swipe. You don't need to talk to anybody. You don't need to transfer. Just scan your vein. So we have devices that currently support that today, and we've deployed some of these in different markets. These are, apart from the hardware, we also provide a software infrastructure for customers, because if you only provide hardware without the software, then you really do not have a business. So we provide software to ensure that customers have the robust experience using our devices end to end. And so SDK supports very quickly for those who just want to hit the ground running. We also have a large engineering team that supports Linux, Android, RTOS, whatever operating system that you would like to use for your devices. We have a team that supports that already. Of course, all the card schemes are, including Afrigo Oceans left, already certified on those devices, and they can allow all of that to work. Finally, we have a robust terminal management infrastructure that allows you manage your estate of devices. Currently today, over 15 million devices are currently being managed with this device globally, right? So this device is robust, has capacity to do some of the things, some of the trends that the industry is also chasing, like geofencing, geotagging. These devices, this infrastructure has capacity to handle that end to end, just to ensure that you have seamless deployment, smooth deployment of your devices, and they can be tracked and not used by the bad guys, most importantly. And of course, we offer value-added services just to ensure our customers have a robust experience using our devices. Thank you very much. Please, can we quickly play the video? There's a video just to show about the N9, about the N950 Newland devices. Can we have the video quickly, please? And please, when you're done here, please feel free to visit our stand just out there, booth A4, and we'll be glad to have you. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Fago, for such a brilliant sponsor's presentation. Please let's put our hands together for him once more. It's the country manager, Newland Payment Technology, Nigeria. Please, once the video is ready, kindly let us know. You know, it's very beautiful to see events like this and just think they woke up one day to organize it. That's a very wrong person to look at you from. I mean, it's been 25 years of innovation,
Nigeria, the National Bureau of Statistics and the Smell and MSA Survey 2021 jointly reports that MSME constitute 96.7 of all enterprises and contribute roughly 46.3% to the GDP, engaging over 59 million people. Despite being the backbone of the economy, driving jobs, local MSMEs in Nigeria still have a limited presence in digital trade, especially across borders. This is a gap we must urgently close, and you would agree with me that the panel sessions and most of the discussions have been, they picking on this as well. Digital trade opportunity. Digital trade refers to commerce enabled by electronic means and telecommunications or ICT services. Digital trade is a game changer. It cuts down costs, breaks through the unusual infrastructure challenges, and opens the door for informal businesses such as the neighborhood tailors, local farmers, market traders to plug into regional and even global value chains. Digital transformation in Nigeria and Africa is gaining ground. The Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, reports that the internet data consumption in Nigeria has already nearly doubled in the past 2 years, with 93% increase. Specifically, data usage reached 1 million terabytes in January 2025, compared to about 500,000 terabytes in January 2023. In sub-Saharan Africa, mobile internet adoption is projected to grow to 40% this year, covering over 600 million people. E-commerce revenue in Africa is projected to hit $75 billion by 2025. You can see that the statistics are rolling. For Nigerian MSMEs, this implies access to new markets, diversified revenue streams, and increased resilience to localized shocks. So what are the barriers to MSMEs' participation in digital trade? Despite all the potentials, there are several major barriers that constitute and hinder MSMEs from fully embracing digital trade. One of them is the alarming deficit in digital infrastructure. According to the World Bank 2021, over one-third of Nigerians still don't have access to reliable electricity and broadband. It's still below 50%, with rural communities behind. Another obstacle is regulatory fragmentation. Across ECOWAS, MSMEs struggle with slow and fragmented custom procedures. Interestingly, the custom woman has been here to tell us some of the things custom have been doing to mitigate these obstacles. So, inconsistent trade policies and confusing digital tax systems. This weakens the momentum needed to go regional or go global. Thirdly, access to financing feels like pushing a wheelbarrow up a tomorrow. Why a tomorrow? That is my state. The International Finance Corporation, IFC, estimates that Nigerian MSMEs face a staggering 158 billion financing gap. For digital entrepreneurs, it's even harder. Many can't access loans, insurance, or trade finance due to limited records or perceived risks. One cannot talk about these barriers without mentioning gaps in digital skills and literacy. How many Nigerians feel comfortable using digital tools for businesses these days? Without the right digital skills, our entrepreneurs struggle to build strong online brands, manage logistics, or even use platforms available for them. So what are we recommending? If we truly want to harness the power of MSME in driving digital trade, I strongly recommend these urgent policy actions in alignment with the AFCTA Protocol on Digital Trade and Nigeria's Digital Economic Policy and Strategy, that is between 2020 to 2030. Number one, we need to harmonize regional digital trade rules.
ECOWAS and African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement institution must work collaboratively to accelerate regulatory convergence in areas such as digital payments, e-invoicing, data protection, simplified custom processes for MSMEs. This aligns with Pillar 4, that's the services infrastructure of the Nigeria's National Digital Economic Policy and Strategy, which advocates for enabling legislation and cross-border interoperability. Number two, we need to invest in enabling infrastructure. Our federal and state government should strengthen public-private partnerships to expand reliable electricity nationwide, broadband infrastructure, and inclusive digital identity system, integrating the national identification number with e-commerce and trade platforms is very essential. This directly supports Pillar 1, that is the development regulation, and Pillar 5, digital services development and promotion of the NDEPS. Number 3, we need to scale digital financial inclusion. With fewer than 50% of Nigeria MSMEs using formal digital finance tools, there is a urgent need to scale fintech innovation that enables seamless FX conversion, low-cost remittances, tailored e-wallet solutions for micro and small exporters. This supports AFCTA's emphasis on financial inclusion and speaks to Pillar 6 soft infrastructure of the NDEPS, which emphasizes trust, cybersecurity, and digital payments. And number 4, institutionalized data collection to drive evidence-based policy making. Agencies such as MBS, CAC, NITDA, and NEPC must collaborate to develop coordinated
employment and also add to our GDP as a nation. And that shows to tell you that regardless of the many conversations that we'll be having today, it just imputes in us once again, and it's a reminder that the need for MSMEs in our society and in our country at large cannot be overemphasized. So having said that, our next panel session now will be moderated by the Director, Intermark Consulting Nigeria, Mr. Okweoluwa Adesoya. Please put your hands together for him as he drives this conversation this lovely afternoon. Please let's sustain the applause. Thank you very much. We'll soon get to the lunch session, I understand. Thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests and participants. We are soon going to get to the session for lunch, just like you rightly mentioned. So let's just put some little smiles on our face with expectation of the lunch coming shortly after we are done with this session. Yes, thank you. And for the purpose of the lunch, I think I deserve a small round. Thank you very much. Yeah, so it's a pleasure to welcome you to this conversation on MSMEs as catalysts for the stage. Entrepreneurs that have put their own niche in the society in their so this is my niche is the Congress in Nigeria. She's had international and local awards all over.
in various sizes. So we need tools that are tailored to fit the sizes and the unique needs of these businesses. So I implore fintech executives, key stakeholders who are here today to look beyond, creating tools, but taking it further by ensuring that they drive local education. Let's have town halls. Let's have SME age grade meetings. And I'm sure that if we implement this, we'll see massive adoption of digital payment services and payment tools in Nigeria and Africa. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Just a quick recap. Infrastructure gaps. The infrastructure is tailored towards the bigger size businesses as against the micro businesses. And
Yes.
the micro businesses are actually a lot more than the big size businesses. So they deserve infrastructures that serves them. Then digital literacy in the form of creating more awareness, and then the need for trust. So that's what I could pick, and just for everyone to pick as well. Thank you so much for that insight.
Okay, sure.
So the next question goes to Dr. Anthony. Given your 25 years in this ecosystem, so what are the most significant digital tools or platforms enabling MSMEs to scale in today's trade environment? If you could, give a little bit of the journey from 25 years ago to what is available now. Thank you.
I started doing business in the year 2000. Then something I just want to share with you people that I didn't say the first time concerning MSc businesses. In 2000, I told my father that I want to start my own business. My father was a civil servant in the military. You know what my father told me? You're a graduate, so you want to start doing 419. He didn't understand that young guys, people should start owning businesses. Prior to that days, people just wait for white-collar job. You just graduate, and then you are working in one bank, one company, and they give you one car. That's what our parents wanted. But I had a different view. I had early days study people like Hebrew and other people. I'm just a person that research a lot. So I started to open my business, and then I grew. Now, at the time, in 2000, there were no internet. There were no phones. We used to, I know I had an office in Papa. Then I had to walk to look for markets all through VI. Then somebody would stay at the phone to receive all information. It was this, this phone. So it was tedious, it was difficult. Those were the times where digital was not even coming up at all. Some people told us then that we were not meant to have phones. I don't want to go there. But you know what I'm talking about. So over the years, we've had problems with payment system where you have to physically carry cash from the bank to another bank, or the buyer comes to you with huge cash, putting you at risk of people attacking you, people who are even monitoring you. Now we've moved from 25 years ago to the age of internet, WhatsApp, tools, payment apps, bank apps, where we are today. Now, I can't but say that we've done well for ourselves. As far as Africa is concerned with the population, with the awareness, Nigeria is a leading user of the digital payment system. Not only that, in cross-border payment, until we have about 3.7 billion transactions in 2021, meaning there's progress, there's growth, we're leading. Now, harnessing the tools for digital payment has been a case of, I think, government will to really engage people. Government is not really putting much in terms of awareness, program, education, telling people that you can do businesses. Now, small-scale business owner like this MSC are shy to come to public. They rather do business on the street, they do business next door, but they don't want to do business outside Lagos. Now you know talk of business outside Nigeria. It's impact negative on the Nigerian economy in terms of growth, GDP. Because if the volume of trade increases via seamless transaction processes like payment system, trust issues are removed, taxes is minimal, cost of selling is regulated. These tools are what will make up a seamless digital payment system and trade transaction. Notwithstanding, we are at the forefront of this whole progress. But the core of Nigerians who are small-scale business owners are still lacking. Because I deal with people every day. I've gone beyond moving equipment from Lagos to Kaduna, every part of Nigeria. Or maybe because I do volume trade, it's easy to do interbanking and all that. But when it comes to Ghana, Cotonou, Cameroon, I have problems. Because these tools, the infrastructure are not there, the willpower of the government, the tax system, the custom duties, the logistics. And I'm just thinking that we should have a one-stop shop for everything, where the customs are involved, the trader, starting of the buyer and the sellers, the banks, the digital payment platforms, so that this system can work as a turnkey project to get business done between buyers and sellers in terms of payment. Thank you.
You can do better than that. As Dr. Anthony was speaking, it was resonating in my mind that, okay, an ideal tool should reduce cost, and he mentioned that. Again, I was thinking of the mobility and logistics, he mentioned that. I was thinking about streamlining all the processes for the values to be scaled and all that, he mentioned it. Don't you think that I'm a magician? You can do better than that again. Thank you so much for the insights. I'm sure the entrepreneurs in this room, the intending entrepreneurs are really following, are looking at all of these things. Tech guys that are in the room, the innovators that are in the room will know that an ideal tool should reduce costs. It should take care of the logistic issues, and it should also be able to streamline all the processes, including the regulatory, the payments, and all of that, to have an ideal idea or products that would scale the value chain and do that very easily. Thank you so much for that again. My next question goes to Temitope. Temitope, you've been very well in this industry. You're a power broker in. Why are you saying? But of course, you're a power broker in the crowdfunding space. So we are expecting to, take a lot from your experience, from your insights and all of that. So I'll ask you this question that's your experience at CrowdInvest. How are digital tools and alternative finance? Let me start again. From your experience at CrowdInvest, how are digital tools and alternative finance helping small businesses not just to survive, but to grow in today's fast-changing economy? Thank you.
Okay, so that question is one of the major things that actually birth the business that we do, and also tweaking the models to ensure that it is sustainable. Back to my storytelling. Now, the same Abubakar that I had met in Jos, I'm so sure that on a regular day, when it's harvest period, maybe Abubakar is doing over 20 million per day, because my own transaction alone was 1.2 million, and there were other people that were there that day coming from different parts of the Nigeria to come and buy from him. Now, Abubakar is going to collect that money and probably maybe keep it. They have under their bed where they keep their money. They don't do banks, right? Now, if Abubakar, like the example she made, saw an opportunity to start supplying to a tomato paste factory. And they have certain demands in terms of quantity or quality that they need Abubakar to, supply. But Abubakar needs more funds to do that. And Abubakar goes to the bank for the first time. So this is a guy that's been doing business for 20 years, 25 years. But he goes to the bank for the first time because he saw an opportunity. And then the bank says, go and bring your 3 years audited finance. Go and bring your history, your banking history. There is a tendency that a bank will lose that opportunity because, to be honest, Abubakar does not have any digital record. He's not doing, but his areas, his boys, they know, say, Nababa, and those kind of opportunities are being passed by because of the regulation or the structure that the banks and other platforms has put into their business that then affect somebody like that has the potential, he has the market, he has the knowledge experience. You can't take that from him. He knows how to farm, he knows, all of that. But what was lacking was the partnership when it came to the finance, and because there were structures that was put in place. So it was very peculiar that alternative investment was the way out. Abubakar may then decide, let me go and crowdfund and talk to my brothers. And then between his brothers and his uncles and his in-laws and everybody, they put that money together to grow his business. But the truth is, we are losing out in terms of the potential of even how the banks could have sat with him and say, okay, let's look at your business. It's raw. We can see value. Let's structure it. And not stop him at the door because he doesn't have the paperwork or he doesn't look like your regular guy that will come to the bank, clean shave. Abubakar may never have his bath for 2-3 days. He's just in his farm, he's making the money, he's keeping it there. So for us, it was an opportunity that we identified and saw that there was a major gap. Because if you look at the numbers here, we are talking about 36 million MSME in Nigeria alone. And I'm so sure that half of that number, they are not bankable based on the rules and regulation that has been set down for the banks. So it's a gap that we identified and we had to go after it. To be honest with you, it is a painful place to be, but if you are able to speak their language, if you're able to, because it means that I believe when we talk about digital adoption, there has to be digital education. Abubakar is not someone that you do social media ads and say, come and bank with us, come on. He not even get social media, talk less of, So these are guys that you have to redesign, like she said, your technology or your solution for them in such a way that they will understand it in their own language. And when you are speaking to them, they will know that this is my guy. This person understands what I'm saying. So that space is a very wild space that I think that, yes, we see a lot of opportunities there where some banks are trying to milk that. But even in milking that, the cost of banking is also still very high. So they would rather still not go in that direction. So they would say, okay, I'm going to do business with you. You are giving me 50,000 naira. When we are done with this business, don't give me plenty story. At the end of it, I'll give you 30,000. Even that 20%, they don't understand. They don't understand your 30%. I will give you 50,000 out of the 100,000 I make. You will collect, and they do that math in their mind and they are fine. And so we have seen that opportunity, and we are hoping that as we talk about digital solutions, we are also looking at, adoptable solutions that you can gradually, because if you start from ground A, then you move it to B, then you move it, maybe in the next 5 years, Abubakar can be your regular guy that will then, know all of these things. But we still need to come into that space and start with them and create access to finance, because that person can grow their business times 10 but they can't do it because there are no opportunities to do it or no partnership to help them, scale up their business.
Okay, thanks, Tim Tope. So I'm going to, if you want to clap for her, please go ahead. Okay, so Tim Tope, your response brought up the next question that I have on my list. But I'm going to merge the last two questions together because we've just touched a little bit on it. I think the audience would, the attendees would be interested to hear your perspective on this thing. Putting myself in Abubakar's shoes, you came to my place, you do not have an inkling on how to speak my language. You came to my shop to speak and span, and you want to buy my tomatoes, and you say you want to do a transfer to me. The first thing that will come to my mind is fraud. Or a scammer coming to, bamboozle me, take my tomatoes, and then run away with my money and all that. So how can MSMEs protect themselves from online fraud and payment scams as they adopt digital innovations? That's one. Secondly, what are the main challenges MSMEs face with digital payments?
Okay, thank you. So in terms of protecting them against fraud, I think one major thing that you need to do is to, teach by demonstration. If you tried a transaction in the presence of Abubakar first, what we did was sometimes we bring people that even speak their language to sit down with them and explain it to them in the language that they understand. And then you practice it in their presence to say, okay, Abubakar, I transfer 10,000 to you. In the next 30 minutes, you're going to get an alert. And Abubakar gets an alert. I was like, all this money they here, it did it. Okay, Abubakar, let's go to the bank. By the time we get to the bank, Abubakar is able to, set up a system where he can check in on his transaction every minute, and like, okay, the money is still there, the money is still there. And by so doing, they learn by demonstration. They are not learning based on the big English you are speaking. They are not learning based on the solutions that you have brought. They are seeing that, okay, you have demonstrated this, and I'm seeing that it has worked, and bit by bit, you are able to gain their trust. So people like this, like I said, you need to speak their language. You need to demonstrate that to them. You may need to identify people in their local communities that will be champions of this innovation, that in case you are not there, they have these people that they are kingsmen or they are local champions that they can go back to and say, this is where I'm struggling with this, can you help me? Now, also in terms of the fraud part and protecting them from fraud, it is still the regular education and communication in ways that they expect to say, Abubakar, you don't put your password down. You don't go give anybody your password. You have to keep it. Or before you make any transfer to anybody, ensure that you have checked, basic questions or basic guidelines that they need to know before they can do this. And of course, you have to be readily available in case Abubakar needs to call you to say, guys, this thing is not working. Explain it to me. So it is a patience game where you have to train and keep training and keep training, and also showing them the red signs that they may need to look out for. If somebody is asking you for your PIN, you don't give them your PIN. If somebody is asking you to click on a link that is not sure, you may need to check in with us too, So the regulators, the bankers, the, solution providers, they may need to just keep creating enabling environment to help protect Abubakar from falling into, the wrong hands. And then the last question you asked was,
what are the main challenges MSMEs face with digital payments?
so number one, I would say that cost of transactions is very high. Now, if I want to withdraw 20,000 from POS, I think you have to pay like 700 naira. So at that point, why do I want to now take my money to bank? I'd rather keep it at home because I know that you're going to charge me for collecting my money. So the cost of transaction is extremely high. Number two is, I would say that the technology that we are building, are we really, and she said something about having town hall meetings and sitting down, because when you understand, yeah, you see, it's one thing to be in Lagos and you say you are building solution for people in the rural area and you have never been there. You've never even lived 1 week in their shoes. So what are you building? You cannot sit in Amsterdam. You can't sit wherever you are and say, I'm building solution. Sometimes you just need to go and see, so that as you build, you know that the people that I'm building for you are meeting a major pain point, not the assumption of this is what this should look like. And then you just build. At that point, nobody is going to accept what it is that you are building. And I think the third thing I'm going to speak to is also having, see, again, you cannot bank again, or you cannot set up this structure and say, we have our offices in Lagos and the people you are serving, they are in the rural areas. You would have to move to where they are and have centers and spaces where you are able to continue to train them. Because if they've tried it for 1 week and they've met major challenge and then there's no how to continue, they are going to drop it. They are not going to use it again. They go back to where they are coming. But if you have a system where somebody is checking in and helping them solve the pain points as they arise, then it is easy for them to continue to adopt and use your system as they go. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, especially the fact that you can't be in Lagos and be thinking for those that are underserved at their location. You don't know where the pain points are. So that calls for a lot of research about them, go there, visit, experience what solution that you are trying to provide. Most solutions that you see, they come out of the providers or the innovators' experience. Thank you so much for that, Tim Tope. Majority, I'm going to merge the remaining two questions for you, and they go thus. How can digital payment solutions help MSMEs overcome cash flow challenges and expand their market reach? I mean, given the point that you gave about creating awareness, right? Then how can government better engage with SMEs to design inclusive digital commerce regulations? We have some regulators around. I'm sure they'll pick some insight from your comments.
Brilliant. So I'll just go straight to the point. The way digital payment platforms or solutions are structured is such that they are supposed to offer speed of transactions, and even when something goes wrong, speed in terms of the response time and customer service. So this is my charge, that they start with that. We heard the country manager from one of the solution providers earlier who talked about the trends, the emerging trends. These trends are good. These tools are good. These solutions are good. But when it comes to implementation, can we ensure that they offer speed? Because for an Emeka in Aba, a failed transaction or a delayed reversal can actually affect his business flow for weeks. We don't want that to continue. So yes, digital trade or digital payments, when done right, can actually offer speed. Now, let's also talk about the fact that many of these underserved, regions where we have uneducated business owners also suffer from low data access. So can we begin to create tools that are offline first, knowing that we can then help these businesses access these offerings or solutions, even with the poor data, services they get in their various regions. These are practical steps that they can do. Thirdly, digital payments, when done right, can also facilitate and expand reach. These I have experienced firsthand with businesses that we have seen on our platform at GG. I mean, I once was having a chat with a customer who said he started with just 20,000 naira. He was an agent, he would spot a nice car, right? and then he would go and get customers, he would make his cut. 5 years down the line, this guy has grown his business from just being that roadside car agent to now doing businesses in other segments like electronics, and the likes. And he has grown his business over time from just making 20,000 naira, 50,000 naira here to, doing business in multiples of millions over time. So yes, digital payments, when done right, can actually facilitate business expansion for SMEs. Remember that SMEs are the lifeblood of our country's GDP. So if all of these steps are taken, I'm pretty sure that we're going to be accelerating their growth. Now to address the last question. Can we talk about regulations, please? Does Abubakar know the policy? Does he even understand the policies that have been formulated to facilitate his business? The truth is he doesn't. So here is what happens. We bring fine minds from across the country and beyond. We put them in a nice, well air-conditioned boardroom, and they make regulations for business owners who are aware in the open markets. This is one of the biggest challenges that creates this strong disconnect between, the real needs of businesses in our climes versus the regulations and policies that have been formulated. So what can the government do? Bring these guys in earlier. Bring them in early into the conversation of policy formulation, not when the first draft has been done, right? Let us also create test environments where these policies can also be refined and tweaked as we go. If it's not working, we can fix it. We don't have to, dump it, but it can be fixed. Finally, create tax incentives for these businesses. We're talking about how small businesses can begin to adopt, digital trade and digital payments. Create, tax incentives like waivers and the rest of them that would, facilitate that would spark up some level of interest in these, businesses, interesting them to, come to the digital side. Finally, is the need to collaborate. We cannot overemphasize this. Collaboration between the SME ecosystem, the fintech, the payment solutions businesses, as well as all relevant government agencies. So that would be it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's from what you've said, it's a lot easy for anyone in this room and outside of this room to fall into this category of Abubakar at different levels. If, for example, I want to do, businesses in China, ni hao to the Chinese people here, ni hao. Right. So I want to do business in China, and I'm in my corner in Lagos thinking that I could easily sell my innovation in China, not trying to understand how the ecosystem for China, not trying to understand it, and I automatically fall into that category of Abubakar. All right, so the Abubakar may not necessarily be the tomato seller in Jos. Okay, so thanks for that insight. I'll go to Dr. Anthony. Doctor, I know you have a lot to share, but it's just we have just a short time to do it. Someday we are going to call you, gather people together, and give you a whole day so I can pour down what you have in, and even me, I'm ready to be your student to learn from you, right? So back to the question now. How can the digital literacy gap among MSMEs be addressed in order to unlock their potential? Given from your experience of unlocking that, in that space, I have a second question.
Okay.
So I just want to mind, because you can see the time is not our friend at all. Then what practical steps can MSMEs take to improve their digital readiness before scaling into multiple foreign markets? And this is, given the background of what Majoli said, it's very important that we know those practical steps. Thank you.
Okay, first, quickly, let me deal with the first question. I'm going to draw from my other speaker. You know, when these banks, let's start with Nigerian banks, when they want to do relationship marketing, they send their staffs to people to kind of tell them, come and open an account in my bank. Now, when they open this account in their banks, that's the end. Now, do you know that every account in the bank has an account officer? But most of us don't tap into that. That's why we are being defrauded. On many, because over time, if anybody calls me, oh, please, we want some information, but I have to call my account officer because it's liable for any damage or fraudulent action in my account. So it's high time the bank expand their relationship market approach to the fact that every transaction has to go through the account officer. That way, we can cop fraud. Because somebody will just send you a link. Okay, for example, something happened. My son was in 100 level at Caleb University. We went to open an account for him. He was 18. Immediately we opened the account in that bank. I don't want to call the bank. 3 hours later, somebody was calling my son, asking him for his BVN number. And the boy is naive. He started giving the information. Then we intercepted him, don't give. Then I went back to the bank. I was seriously mad. I was mad at the bank. How come this information is leaking to a third party and they're asking for my son's information? I just put like the school fees, 1.2 million. They will have just swipe up that money. And they'll say they don't know. So now, what am I saying? The bank is solely responsible for fraud protection and customer service application. They need to do more to protect small business owners in terms of their money and how they run their accounts. If anybody is going to call me to ask for some classified information, I should be able to confirm with my account officer. I'm sure many of you have the number of your account officer in your bank. This is the fact. But in a modern society, we should have an access, direct access. You don't have to run to the bank from your own village to a city to talk to the bank. You should have a direct contact because they came to you. They came to your house. They came to your neighborhood to market. That's on one side. On the cross-border payment system, it took me years to understand this, and I'll just share it in a few minutes. One of the things I see amongst our small-scale business owners are we're timid, we're not educated, we're not aware, we're not well informed that a tailor or a fashion designer can actually sell his or her wear to somebody in Ghana and make payments. For me, I do adverts to other African countries. So people call me from Ghana, Nigeria, and other places. Then sometimes I know that we have issues of logistics, trust, and payment system. If you ever had payment entrapment where you make transfer, then it spends 2 weeks before you get your money back. My God. You rather withdraw your money and start buying and selling trade by barter. So the bank needs to look at funds being trapped. We need to improve our digital payment system, internet system, payment system. You should be able to rectify payment issues within 24 hours. I've had payment issues with a client in Cotonou that lasted 2 weeks. That transaction almost collapsed, but because it's an old customer. And also, we won't release goods if we don't see money. Some of them too say we don't trust you because we have not seen the goods. Like I said previously, there's a way for the government to do something about it. There's a structural gap. There is financing. Like if you want to do international trade, like you want to go through SWIFT, and like here, we are doing our own PAP system, Pan-African payment system and settlement system here. But before now, like if I want to buy things from the US, it's always direct. I just pay one way, a letter of credit, whatever the transaction system is. But in Africa, we have similarly so many problems. It's like we are virtually smuggling our goods to the next country because we avoid exchange rates, cost of selling, logistic problem, custom duties, and so many issues related to this trade. But for me, I think as an individual, we can't do much, except the structure, the system itself is well developed to carry us along as small business owners in terms of selling our goods to other countries. Thank you.
You can do better. You know, you didn't have to pay to learn from these experts, especially the students. You didn't have to pay for that. Can you please put your hands together for these great panelists? Thank you so much. All right. We are wrapping up this. I want to thank the panelists for their insights. I'll just give a quick recap of what it is. Infrastructure gaps. So that has been identified, and it also creates its own opportunities. If I'm an innovator, I'll be thinking of those infrastructure gaps and how I can key into that to provide a solution. Digital literacy, there's a need for digital literacy. It creates its own opportunity. Digital literacy, creating awareness around digital payments, digital trades, and all that could, lay that to rest. Then there's a need to, as you're innovating, as you're providing solutions, there's a need to know that cost reduction should be a factor that you should consider. Then mobility, then streamlining, all the value chains, is another thing that has to be considered. So we are wrapping up this. We are going to throw it open to the attendees. We are just going to take 2 questions and then we'll close for the day. If you have a question, I think there's a provision for you to drop your questions online. The MC would share that link where you can throw it online. Then we share with the panelists so they would respond to it at their own time. So if you have any question, could you please indicate by raising up your hands? Well, it seems we are all very clear. They did a good job. There's much clarity, so there's no need for any question. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, panelists. We quite appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Opeoluwa Adesoya, Director at Intermac, and all the distinguished panelists. Please, could you come together for group photos? Thank you very much for that insightful session 2. We have one more to go. And on the theme is MSMEs as a catalyst for digital trade. I know, especially the millennials and Gen Z, you've been waiting for this session. I mean, this session is about you, but the organizers are very thoughtful. They're nice people. They know that you have to break. You need to eat. A lot of you have been here since morning. So they've been kind enough to provide light snacks. We're not breaking for the session. We'll just flow into the next session. And I'm sure a lot of you are brilliant. You can multitask. The fact that you're chewing something does not mean you can't listen to what the panelists have to say, right? Yeah, as long as you're not eating swallow, they will provide small chops and you can listen and follow the event at the same time. So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to flow into the event and wrap things up. I'm looking forward to the next panel session, which is on millennials and Gen Z forum, because that's my group. I'm a Gen Z. Yes, you know what I'm saying? Okay. So the next remarks will be taken, a short presentation from a sales executive at Urovo Technology Company Limited. I'm sure you've seen their booth outside. It's very colorful and really it stands out. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Delia Zeng as she makes her way to the podium to give her presentation. Can we have her slides up, please? Thank you.
Good morning and good afternoon. Just to think about maybe China is good morning now. So I'm Delia from Eurovolt and our booth is the A2. Maybe some people have been visit there and hope after our presentation more people can visit us and know more about us. So Eurovolt is a POS supplier globally. We are not just in Nigeria, but other countries, not just America or South America or Africa and South Africa. Before I'm coming here, I'm just thinking about what Eurovolt can show into you. So after this one, I'm just think about maybe my topic can be improved growth leverage Eurovolt. So Eurovolt is not newer in Nigerian market. We have been into this market more than 5 or 6 years ago, and so we have a deep research of the POS market in Nigerian market. So there are something clients give some our feedbacks, also some the potential clients quote us. At the same time, the internal predicting analyze. So we just find there are something conflicts in Nigeria POS. So first one is why more large POS needs and device needs, but the vulnerable and expensive POS price. So it delay the development of the POS development. So, and the second one is we can feel the Nigerian government promotes very well about the digitalized, financial digitalized.